We have new questions on the wheel. So let's see where we land for today. Why is it called science of mind treatment? Okay. We'll explore that. Let's take a breath together. So our theme this year, if you're unfamiliar, is first thing first. No S, just thing. Because we can only do one thing at a time, and only one thing can come first. But it might take our human brains a little while to catch up to that, so we're going to think about that for a whole year. Give it plenty of time. And so we're going through the 12 steps, not from a perspective of you need to give up some substance, but from the perspective of recovering our spiritual authenticity, which ultimately is what all recovery programs are about. Some of them are just masqueraded by a substance, but at the core, it is all a spiritual journey back to self. And so this month, it's the fourth month, so it's the fourth step and the fourth tradition. We spend the first 2 weeks in the step, second 2 weeks in the tradition. So today we're wrapping up, made a searching and fearless moral inventory. And we talked last week about what those words mean to us. And if you chose to avail yourself of the study guide, it gave you an opportunity to explore those. Because just because it says it in the dictionary is no indication that we agree with it or that we use it that way. Right? The fact that there are so many definitions for the same word in the dictionary is indicative that we can't even agree on what words mean. So you may as well know what you mean. Doesn't matter what I mean, matters what you mean. Because you're the one navigating your experience. And it's important that I know what I mean because I'm navigating my experience. So part of, and the part that is so resisted about the fourth step is actually writing things down. To actually do an inventory. And we touched on this briefly. If you own a business and you refuse to inventory what's on your shelves, you never know what the value of your product is anymore. Right? You may have product on your shelf that is out of date. Right? If you run a deli as your business, please inventory your products. Having had the experience of managing a fast food restaurant, there is this FIFO thing that you need to pay attention to. First in, first out. Okay? And if you don't rotate what's on your shelves, stuff that came in a year ago is still on your shelf becoming a science project in the food world. Some of us might have some of those in our refrigerator. Right? Especially those of us that have teenagers, because when we're teenagers, we have this habit. Maybe your teenager doesn't, maybe you didn't. But when we have something, we run across something in our refrigerator that's suspicious, rather than dealing with it, we just shove it to the back. Right? Right? That's what we do with our thoughts. Right? We do that a lot with our thoughts. When we're not sure what to do with them, shove them to the back. And they morph. And they change. And they grow hair. And they get stinky. And then we open our mind and we're like, what is that smell? And our first impulse is to look outward Right? That must be something somebody else is thinking. Because I can't have stinking thinking in my own mind. But we do. In science of mind, we call those hidden beliefs. They're hidden. If you knew what they were, they wouldn't be hidden. Okay? So, I tell practitioners this all the time. Never, ever is it appropriate to say to somebody, well, what are your hidden beliefs? If they knew, they wouldn't be hidden. If they could answer that, they wouldn't need you to help them identify them. So that's what the fourth step is really about. It's about identifying beliefs and patterns and thoughts that are operating below our level of consciousness. We looked at this graphic last week, right? So all this stuff down here, this is what your fourth step is about. It's all that stuff that's way under the surface that is wrecking your Titanic because you don't see it coming. You don't see it coming. And then all of a sudden, you have those moments where you're in the middle of something and everything inside of you is going, what happened? Right? This happened. Hidden beliefs happened. And we all have them. We all have them. Don't make you bad. It makes you, okay, buckle up, ready? It makes you normal. Now, maybe you haven't been accused of that lately, but it makes you profoundly normal that you have thoughts operating outside of your awareness. Right? No big deal, unless you're unwilling to do a little digging to find them. Because as long as they're there, they're operating. Right? This thing of spiritual mind treatment, it is literally called that because it's about treating our spiritual mind. There's only one mind. That's what we teach. It's not talking about your brain. It's talking about eternal thought. Because in mind being an eternal thing, an eternal something, every thought that has ever been thunk must be equally eternal. You can't have one eternal beingness and then have some part of it that's not eternal. They would cancel each other out. Right? Now, I don't know about you, but when it dawned on me that every thought that I have ever thunk, that I think now and will ever think is eternal, I was like, where's the off switch? I need to stop thinking. Right? Because I knew that some of the things I was thinking didn't need to live forever. Too bad. They do. And so we become intentional about what we think. We begin to take ownership. We take responsibility. And spiritual mind treatment gives us an avenue to heal some of those eternal thoughts. Right? And we bring science into it. I always go back to 10th grade biology. Right? The acid beaker. We didn't take the acid out to neutralize what was in that beaker. We added base to chemicalize it to become alkaline. That's what spiritual mind treatment does. It adds truth to errant thought, to alchemize it, to chemicalize a new thing. It neutralizes. Holmes frequently talks about neutralizing thought. Right? The only way we do that is add something. And sometimes we get stuck in trying to not think about something. How's that working for you? Right? I mean, I could say, don't think about, and you'd be mad at me the rest of the day, which is why I'm stopping there. I have a whole list running through my annoying little head right now. Like, be good. I don't wanna. So we take a look inside. Right? Now here's what happens when we look inside. Two things are going on. The part of us that's aware of what's there is going, shh, don't say it out loud. And then there's the scared little part of us that is like hiding in the closet, looking through the peephole, thinking we're going to actually find something that we don't already know about. Here's the good news. You have already survived every thought you've ever had. You cannot possibly remember a thought you're not actually aware that you had. You can remember thoughts that you've decided to forget that are on the back of the shelf, but you already had the thought. You already survived it. There are no surprises once we tell ourselves the truth that, oh, yeah, I already thought that. Right? The challenge is our judgments about ourselves for having thought it in the first place. That's what this step frees us from. Right? It's a process of ownership that frees you from all of the guilt and shame that you made up about using the freedom of thought. Creation, how do I want to phrase this? I am unable to substantiate any belief in a God that has a scorebook. I was taught that growing up, but I can't substantiate it. I just can't. It doesn't line up with a loving God. It doesn't line up with the freedom of choice that we have, absolute freedom, that we are creation made manifest in form with the desire to express and then get punished when we do that. That don't make sense. Right? And if it don't make sense, chances are it's because it doesn't make sense. Right? So maybe we let that go. Maybe we start by recognizing that all of the noise in my brain about not looking and not taking responsibility is just made up garbage that gets to get neutralized. Maybe we start there. Right? In the worksheet, first of all, there are as many formats for doing a fourth step as there are people on the planet. If you consult the gospel according to Google, you will get literally hundreds of formats on how to do a fourth step. So do it however you do it. Just do it. Right? I've offered you a couple formats because there seems to be a couple of big things, big categories, resentment being the biggest one, that we hide in the back of the refrigerator, right? Those things that, for the most part, are quiet until we get triggered, and then we're mad, and nothing actually happened in the moment. We're mad about something that happened 30 years ago. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. Because I see too many smiles going, uh-oh, he's on to me. Because I'm on to myself, right? Here's the thing. You get to be free from those resentments the minute you choose to free yourself. Because can't nobody else free you. Resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the person you resent to die. Never gonna work. They don't even know you're hurting. I'll show you, I'll be mad. Then you'll be sad, and then I'll be glad. No, doesn't work that way. Because they've moved on. They don't even know that you're obsessing about them. They don't know. I want to be really careful here. Because trauma is a real thing. And many of us are using this carve out of trauma to not heal. There are some of us that are really invested in clinging to our trauma, that there's a self-righteousness now about having trauma, because somehow that excuses all of my behavior. No, it doesn't. It might explain it. It might inform it, but it doesn't excuse it. As one who has lived through a lot of trauma, as one who is living through the trauma right now of being a trans person in the United States of America. It's a little traumatic right now. So what? So what? It doesn't excuse me acting out. It doesn't. Now, I can use it for that, or I can take ownership of my thoughts. So we get to look at our resentments. And it's real simple, folks. I resent. And then you just, if it's a person, write down the person. Sometimes we resent spiritual principle. Right? I resent gratitude. Sometimes. It's okay if you do. Right? I had a ridiculous moment early on in recovery where I found myself jobless, homeless, and penniless, living in a Dodge Colt with 2 cats and a litter box and everything I owned. I had a resentment for whoever, because in the NA book, it says, at times, many of us found ourselves jobless, homeless, and penniless. Somehow, in the twisted thinking of my brain, the fact that they wrote that is why I was experiencing it. And so I had a resentment against whoever wrote that in the book. Does it make sense? No. Did I have it? Yes. I did. So it doesn't have to make sense. But if you have a resentment, write it down. I resent goes in one column, because goes in the next column. Again, doesn't have to make sense. This affected how is it affecting you? Is it affecting your relationships, your thinking, your health? Whatever it is. My part in this is, see, because not all of it exempts other people. Right? I was sexually assaulted as a child. That's not my fault. But I have a part in the resentment. Right? I had a part in the resentment. I refused to forgive. I refused for a long time. I used at the people who hurt me for a long time. I almost killed me to get back at them for a long time. That was my part. But until I owned that, I couldn't heal it. So what's your part? Doesn't mean you did it, What's your part in the resentment? Not in the behavior that created the resentment. Right? The other categories are fear, where we get to look at, and you'll notice on the worksheet I call it thought fear. I'm not talking about legitimate biological fear, right? Vaughn and I were laughing this morning. He went for a run, and I'm like, the only time I'm running is if somebody's chasing me. That's fear, right? There is a biological fear, your autonomic nervous system. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about thought fear. All the things that we tell ourselves are a threat, whether they are or not. You know, I'm afraid because. Goes in that first column. And then the process is the same. Because this affects and my part in this is. And then hurtful behaviors. Same process. What behaviors have you done? What patterns of hurtful behavior do you still do that hurt you or somebody else? And finally, the surprise category, because it's about balance. Last week we talked about how do we identify our gifts. Do the fourth step. And do a fourth step on the positive accomplishments. See, it's not just about all of the negative. There's a whole lot of us that are walking around with gifts that we won't own. Or that we owned, but we put a timestamp on them. Right? I have a basement full of jeweler's equipment. And I realized this week that somewhere in my ridiculous made-up thinking, I put a timestamp on all that equipment and my ability to make jewelry. And I'm like, well, that's a lie. Right? Because I do this stuff before I bring it to you. I am an incredibly gifted lapidary. I can cut stones just listening to the stone and going through the process. Somewhere, I told myself that ship had sailed. And yet, I have all the equipment sitting right there. I have... Eamon, I know you're listening. Eamon and Joe, bless their hearts, they know how many rocks and stones I have because they hauled them all from the truck all the way around to the basement. I have a lot. Right? And one of the things that doing this helped me see was that I'm concerned about money in my retirement. I probably have over $100,000 worth of product on my shelf waiting to be actualized. I have rough opal that just has such brilliant fire that just is waiting to be shaped and polished. There's no excuse for the fear because I have the gift to change it. But if I hadn't slowed down enough to do this, I'd be like, still living the lie that, oh, poor me. Right? It's not poor me. It's unconscious me. Right? And we get to wake up. Step 4 helps us wake up. And you're not going to find anything that you haven't already survived. So let that lie go right out of the gate. I'm scared of what I'm going to find out. Really? You already know it. You're just acknowledging that you know it. And you're opening the prison door so that you can walk out. That's really what this 4th step is about. And yes, there are other steps. And now we're into the nuts and bolts. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Your soul, according to science of mind, is the activity of creation. It's not a separate thing. Soul, Ernest Holmes equated soul with law. It's the activity of creation. And so, get active. Do something already. Uncover. Claim what works for you and let the rest of it go. I was having a conversation, I'll close with this. Was having a conversation with somebody after the workshop service, and they were sharing how they had become aware of a lot of guilt and shame they were carrying. And I said, okay. They're like, well, do you have any words? And I said, sure. I said, okay, buckle up, because here comes my clearest, most powerful ministerial guidance I can give you. And I'm going to go. Seriously. Let it go. And it is crap. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't belong in your consciousness. Let it go. Let it go. And it will have its own decomposition process. But you got to let it go. Stop igniting it. Let it go. The fourth step is the beginning of your freedom. And here's the thing. I can't make you do it, and I wouldn't if I could. But you get to. You don't have to. You get to. Let's take this into prayer. And I smile as I recognize that there really is only one. That it is everywhere present. One mind. Eternal. My mind. Your mind. God's mind. Whatever label. It is the same mind. And so I claim and affirm the power of mind to alchemize, to neutralize, to heal every errant thought operating in consciousness, to free all of life, to free humanity, to free the earth, to free all that walks on the earth by alchemizing thought. To bring behavior in alignment with thought by healing belief. And I am so grateful. So grateful for a life that gives to life. A life that serves life. A life that holds no guilt, shame, or regret against itself. A life that stands at the door with the key to freedom, offered freely to all. And grateful that we simply choose to receive it, and it is ours. And so I let go. I let go of every thought that blocks the full realization of divinity. I let go. I let go of all the resentment, all the fear, all the lies. I let go. Knowing that what I heal in my own awareness heals in mind and is available to all. And so it is.